ICTA had a total debt of over 1.5 billion to over 20 vendors or 20 parties. On the other hand, OPEX was also not received on time. And there had been instances where ICTA staff had not been paid for over 1.5 months. And then we had because of all these problems, we had a severe problem regarding staff. Many had left ICTA because of the uncertainty of the future of ICTA, lack of job satisfaction, because there were no funds to complete the projects they have started, and then there were no permanence in their jobs. For instance, when we started the 3.0 journey in early 2020, our technology team had only 2.5 people, including the CTO. We didn't have qualified financial officers in the past. And then the bottom line was a demotivated and a battered staff. And due to all these shortcomings, there had been a number of delays and backlogs. For instance, the annual audited financial reports was pending from 2016 when we started the 3.0 journey. The annual reports was pending from 2016. The operational manuals have not been created or updated for years. And there had been lack of governance mechanisms internally due to the lack of people in the management positions. And the final result has been the loss of credibility and authority of ICTA. Many projects have stalled midway due to non-settlement of dues. And therefore, ICTA has lost control over vendors and thereby on the projects due to the unsettled dues. And ironically and sadly, all these definitions that arose due to the lack of funds was interpreted as a deficiency of ICTA or its officers. And the main fact I want to highlight is that ICTA was to be closed down. There was a sunset clause and ICTA was to be closed down after 5 years. That was the history of ICTA. Come 2022, the dawn of ICTA 3.0, as we all know, the national strategy, Vistas of Prosperity and Splendor. And there, one whole chapter was dedicated for a technology-based society. With the dawn of 3.0, ICTA 3.0, His Excellency the President appointed a new board for ICTA, then positioned ICTA directly under the President through the Ministry of Technology. And a presidential circular was issued that ICT and digital solutions of the government should be overall managed and supervised under ICTA. Going forward, towards the latter part of 2020, exactly on 16th November 2020, His Excellency the President obtained cabinet approval for the National Digital Transformation Strategy and Plan formulated by ICTA, a digital government blueprint and the architecture, and also to reposition, reorganize, and empower ICTA to drive the national digital transformation with necessary operational independence to drive the national agenda. So that was the dawn of ICTA 3.0. With that, we got a new board with IT industry experts, a new foundation for ICTA, from the sunset clause to close down ICTA to a permanent entity with authority to drive the digital transformation of the country. ICTA created the National Digital Transformation Strategy, as I explained before, created a new organization structure to execute the National Digital Transformation Strategy, created a new employment paradigm from contract-based employees to permanent positions and industry-based salaries, and it secured cabinet approval for all above the new model of ICTA and the National Digital Transformation Strategy. We started recruiting high caliber personnel to support this initiative. And as I said earlier, we had dues to over 50 vendors amounting to more than 1.5 billion. All those were settled during the year 2020 and we kept current. Very briefly on the National Digital Transformation Strategy, what was developed. This will be explained a little bit more throughout the day when my colleagues take the floor. The major two components was the digital government, a strategy for the digital government, a strategy for the digital economy on a foundation of digital laws and policy to create trust on the digital transformation. So very basically, very high level, this was the national digital transformation structure. And in order to support this national digital transformation strategy, ICTA created an organization. As you can see, ICTA created an organization to support the digital government and the digital economy. In fact, we divided the digital government into two pillars, the digital government and digital services. All of you know that in the past, due to the lack of funds or other reasons, one of the failures of many government projects was that there was no sustainability, there was no hand-holding, and there was no servicing of this solution that was provided. In order to cater for that, we created the digital services wing. So the digital government and digital services wing put together is serving the digital government strategy. And we have a separate wing for the digital economy. All these wings are headed by chief officers. Then spanning across all the three digital government, digital services, and digital economy wings, we have the technology wing, the information security and process and quality, and the commercial wing covering the finance, HR, monitoring and evaluation, policy, procurement, etc. And also a very strong legal foundation headed by a general counsel looking after the digital laws and policies. So this is the at very high level, the ICTA structure that is being developed, that has been developed, and also still we are recruiting people to fill some of these positions to support the digital transformation strategy, which I showed you earlier. Then I will very briefly peek into the digital government. I will not go into the details because my colleagues who will be taking floor after me will be going into the details. As I said, we have developed a digital government strategy, a whole of government approach, looking into all the aspects of the government, participation of all the parties in the government, a 360-degree approach to the digital government. And in fact, the Cdio Initiative today is also a part of that. So we have developed a digital government architecture for the government. At the basis, we have the foundational infrastructure, the Lanka government cloud, Lanka government network, and also the forthcoming Sri Lanka unique digital identity framework and the national data exchange. The digital identity framework will be operative most probably from the third quarter of next year. And top of that, we have the shared solutions in this architecture, solutions that will span across many government departments like email and collaboration solutions, HRM solutions, payment solutions, so on and so forth. And then of course we have domain-specific solutions we call the line of businesses like education, health, motor traffic. There are many domain-specific or line of business solutions that are being built. And then the common access layer where we provide access to these services. So this is very basically at very high level, the digital government blueprint on which we are developing all our solutions. Of course, we have an engagement model. I will not go into details because this will be covered by the Chief Digital Government Officer later on. But in order to get engaged with the different domains, we have a very specific mode of engagements depending on the ICT's role and the ICT's roles varying in each of these mode of engagement. Of course, as in any strategic initiative, a strategic plan, we have targets set. I will not go into these details. The idea here was to ensure that there are specific targets. My colleagues will go into the details of the targets when they go into their presentations. And then a very quick overview of many of the digital government projects that are ongoing under these transformation initiatives. At the top, the most important project that would underpin the digital transformation of the country, the digital ID, the Sri Lanka unique digital ID project is ongoing with clear-cut timelines. We are working on the court automation project, another important and monumental project that will serve this country, the e-local government project, the e-Gram Nilgari project, automation of health, smart education, e-motoring, upgrading of Lanka government cloud, Lanka government network. These are some of which we are undertaking under the digital government. On the digital economy, the strategy is actually aligned under 5 pillars: technology industry development, startup nation, technology diffusion, capacity building, and regional cluster development. Very clear-cut plans have been drawn under each of these subcategories, which will be explained by my colleagues as we progress during this day. Here again, we have a clear-cut KPIs, time targets. I will not dwell on this because this will be dealt by my colleagues, but the fact here is that I want to show that we have clear-cut targets and timelines set for our strategy. And finally, the digital policy. We are developing digital policy and laws, actually. We are striving to develop digital government policies to keep the digital government safe and support the digital economy. There are a number of initiatives happening under this area, and my colleague who is handling this area will be going into details when he addresses you. So that is at a very high level how ICTA is being geared up to run the national digital transformation strategy that is one of the key priorities of the country. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Digital transformation of a nation would not be possible unless it's supported by a strong legal framework. Mr. Jayantha Fernando, Legal Counselor, Chief Legal Officer of ICTA, is entrusted with this task, and he will explain the strong legal foundation Digital Sri Lanka is built on.
Good morning. Can I be heard?
Yes, Jayantha, loud and clear.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the introduction. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, CEO, for your presentations. Can my slides be seen?
Not yet.
Your video needs to be a bit lower, Mr. Jayantha. We cannot see you. It's half of your face.
Can you see my slides?
I can't see you, Jayantha.
Not yet.
No, not yet.
Yes, we can see.
Now, okay.
Yep.
Yeah. So basically, I'll give a snapshot overview of some of the digital laws required for a country to move to the digital mode, to have a fully empowered digital society. It is in that context that I have just done a short slide. In the interest of time, I am mindful that this is a lighting speech that we are supposed to do. So in any country that is moving through a digital transformation process, we need to have a digital policy and a proper strategy. So Sri Lanka has progressively done that over the years. One of the early strategies that we had, which became a transformational strategy, and one of the first e-development strategies was the Sri Lanka Development Program that many of the CIOs are familiar with, and some of you got specialized training, capacity building under that program. And since that program ended, there have been efforts to do various initiatives and interventions, but the most significant transformation happened with the adoption of the digital transformation policy and strategy in 2020. So looking at the legal landscape, what I want to emphasize is that the digital era poses opportunities and also poses challenges, and there are no perfect legal solutions to create opportunities or address the challenges. And countries are trying out different approaches and bringing in laws, policies, measures to stay relevant and become part of the digital ecosystem and part of the global digital community. So in terms of international standards, what I want to emphasize is that Sri Lanka historically adopted international standards in our legislative legal reform initiatives, and some of them are captured in under the sub-bullet items under the third bullet. But what I have to emphasize is that many of these are still evolving, especially those standards governing cybersecurity and cybercrime are internationally evolving, but we have got unanimity in dealing with digital transactions, digital commerce. There have been a common international standard that have been introduced, which I will come to in a few minutes. But we must not forget that the challenges posed by the digital era is also significant. There is a lot of violent extremism content online. To deal with this, there are different initiatives happening, what we like to call cyber norms, developed through partnerships with the private sector included. And one example is that nation states came together in 2019 after the Christchurch incident to develop what we call the Christchurch Call, where the nations states realized that without the collaboration of the private sector, we cannot address this common problem affecting humankind. So to give a snapshot overview, some of you are familiar with the legal standards that we have adopted. Here is a snapshot of some of the key legislation impacting digital transformation in Sri Lanka. I have picked two of them which I have highlighted, which is significant. Many of you are using the Electronic Transactions Act on a daily basis. What I have to remind all of us is that the Electronic Transactions Act was upgraded in 2017 after the gap analysis that was done over 4 years from 2012 to 2015. And we entered an international standard, the first country in South Asia to adopt the UN Electronic Communications Convention as a standard to facilitate cross-border electronic trade and commerce. But this law, Electronic Transactions Act, has a significant importance for digital government and digital economy strategies that we are implementing at present. We of course have a very strong cybercrime framework. First in South Asia to adopt the Budapest Cybercrime Convention. Today, in a few minutes, I have another conference call with some of the officials of the Attorney General's Department on their work related to this subject area. And then we have the cybersecurity legislation, which is in the draft stage, where the Defense Ministry and Ministry of Technology, under the leadership of our Secretary, Mr. Jayanta De Silva, and our Chairman, Mr. Oshrita Senanayaka, are taking pioneering steps to bring together all these various national level stakeholders to come and reach consensus to formulate a cybersecurity legal framework to take care of the defense side and the civilian aspects of cybersecurity, which will be addressed towards the latter part of this year. Data protection legislation is now ready, and some of you have taken part in the public consultations we had. We had 7 rounds of public consultations, including with government stakeholders. The bill is available now in 3 languages. We have published the latest version on ICTA website, and this bill will be presented to Parliament before the end of this year. Now, on the Electronic Transactions Act, I explained that we have reached an international standard, which is commonly referred to as the UN Electronic Communications Convention, and we upgraded the law. But what is important is that Section 8 provides the foundation for CIOs to transform their existing manual processes to digital form. Filing, creation, retention of documents, issuing receipts, payments, and even licenses can be done digitally, and the entire procurement cycle can be done in the digital form, including the payment thereof. So to facilitate electronic payments, a lot of work was done by ICTA for a long time. And one important significant item is the circular under the 3rd bullet, the Financial Regulation Circular 447 of 2010, that some of our colleagues were involved in formulating with legal assistance, that remains relevant to date. And these activities are continuing, and I'm happy to say that after the directives issued by the Presidential Commission of Inquiry on the customs processes, customs has now gone digital with issuing digital certificates, and the Customs Department is taking a pioneering lead in a digital transformation process as well. Many departments, Immigration, Registrar General's Department, Registration of Persons Department have done a lot of transformation into digital form, including the NIC lookup system and the birth certificate being issued online. All these are facilitated through the Electronic Transactions Act, especially Section 8. And it is actually not mandatory for us to have regulations in place under the Electronic Transactions Act to invoke and make Section 8 really operative. In order to make the rules clear, some departments have introduced regulations with our assistance. Most notably, Registrar General was one of the first to do that. Electronic Transactions E-Population Register regulations of 2014 were recently upgraded in September this year. Another pioneering effort of the Ministry of Technology, supported by ICTA and the Registrar General's Department, working in collaboration with legal draftsmen to make this possible. And that ensures electronic records to be kept at Registrar General's Department, issuing a unique number at birth, and so on and so forth. And then we have also the regulations called the e-registration of persons regulations that facilitates end-to-end activities in the ID card department to be done electronically. So basically, a lot of these initiatives have happened thanks to your collaboration. The CIO collaboration is essential here, and the heads of department in all these activities have played a pivotal role under the leadership of our Minister of Technology and our ICTA Chairman Board and the CEO as well. So with that note, I just want to thank you for a patient hearing. I hope this was a lightning speech. ICTA is ready, and my legal team is available to clarify any of these digital laws where regulations are needed. We can interface with the legal drafts department to make this possible, so that your transformation will become something that you can be proud of, and our citizens can be proud of, and that the nation by itself can upgrade ourselves into a fully digitalized nation. Thank you very much. And thank you very much to all my colleagues for organizing this session.
Thank you, Mr. Jayantha Fernando. Next on our agenda, I would like to invite Mr. Kanchana Tudugara, Chief Digital Government Officer of ICTA, to take you through the future of digital government transformation in Sri Lanka.
Thank you. Let me bring up the slides. So good morning, everyone. I'm mighty pleased to be here today in this Chief Digital Information Officer framework launch. So my job is to give you an insight about the digital government strategy, what ICT has conceptualized thus far, and what we are planning, what we have envisioned to roll out in next couple of years. So, right. So the digital transformation for a prosperous Sri Lanka. I mean, we spoke about it, I think Chairman's presentation and even CEO's presentation spoke about that. This is the vision that we are elevating to, and this is the vision that we are hoping that all Cdios also would help ICTA and their new organizations to achieve the goal. So in any, when we roll out any strategy, we need to know what our values are. We need to have our values straight. So after a lot of deliberations, we have identified these three to be our core values when it comes to digital transformation initiatives for the government. Citizen first, I mean, this is nothing new. I mean, all of you have been in this space for some time, knows citizen-centric services is key. We need to make sure services with citizens' needs in mind. So citizens first is our key first value, and then a government as a platform. I mean, in order for us to develop valuable user-focused services, we need to have the necessary infrastructure, necessary shared solutions, necessary platforms, technology, processes, all that in place. So government need essentially to be as a platform, as an enabler to make sure all the other solutions are developed. So government as a platform is our next key value. And then we cannot forget the business community. Any economy, government is the primary stakeholder for any business. So our responsibility is to, through these digitized solutions, through this digital transformation, to provide efficiency for businesses when transacting with government. So we have these three aspects as our key values when we have embarked on our strategy formulation initiatives. So when it comes to strategies, in line with the values that I laid earlier, we have identified 4 key strategies. Number 1, citizens and business focused solutions. I don't need to emphasize or detail out further, as a group of people who have been working on your own digital initiatives, you know this is a key strategy. And then shared and digital solutions and platform. I spoke about it when I presented the values. It is imperative that we have this in place. And while doing so, we need to make sure data standards and data architectures are looked at to make sure data sharing across government organizations and across solutions is properly looked at. And the strategy number 3, developing high available and secure systems. These days, security and making sure the systems are highly available is of paramount importance. So that is key strategy that we are vigorously pushing towards when solutions are implemented. And of course, finally, unified approach toward digital transformation. Earlier, as you all know, we had a separate area, the government area vertical was referred to as re-engineering government program earlier. That is giving the emphasis that we need to look at our processes when we digitize and make sure that they are re-engineered when we embark in this digital transformation strategy. So the policies, laws, all that needs to come in to make sure a unified approach is taken towards the digital transformation. So to support the values that I presented earlier, we have identified these 4 strategies. And in line with that, we have identified 6 initiatives. I'm going to extremely briefly touch these strategies, initiatives, 6 initiatives, so that you could get a glimpse of what we are trying to do. Bearing in mind, this is a lightning speech, so I want to make sure that I deliver it in time. So digital identity is one of our key initiatives. What exactly is digital identity? Digital identity means giving a digital presence to every citizen in the country. You cannot talk about digital government or any digital interaction if you cannot assure digital presence to any citizens in the country. Through the Digital Identity Initiative, we are trying to give that to every citizen in the country. So from there onwards, it is all the legality, all legal aspects will apply same as if we are doing it manually. That will completely transform the way government work, the way economy operates. And that will leapfrog all our digital initiatives in the country. And I mean, yes, we are very enthusiastic, but some of you might know that as a government, we were trying to do this for the last 20 years, and we were not being able to do that. But this time around, with the leadership which we are having, we are determined to make sure that we complete this initiative in time. And this will definitely help all of you in your digitization effort. Next initiative is to make sure seamless cross-government communication platforms to facilitate connected government. Connected government would be essentially communicating between government organizations and government and private sector. Unless otherwise we have the proper platforms in place and data sharing policies in place, it will always be silos. So there is a special focus in this initiative. And then, of course, citizen-centric services. It can be information-centric, can be shared platforms, or citizen-centric. So regardless of the classification, we just need to make sure citizens' focus is there in all our initiatives. So this is a specific initiative that we have planned, especially targeting that. And then internal government efficiency. This is where most of your efforts would come in. We need to make sure the government is being seen as efficient. Our work is done in an efficient manner to revenue generation and law and order through digitization. So it may be platforms, or it could be shared solutions, or it could be line of business specific solution. Regardless, this particular initiative intends to facilitate all these initiatives targeting towards government internal efficiency. And then the fifth initiative, the business, ease of doing business. That is again of paramount importance for the government and for the economy in general. So these are the key criterions which is usually looked at when it comes to ease of doing business. We are working with our partners in all these areas to make sure that we could do that much, to make sure that we improve the way to create a business friendly environment facilitated to digital government and services. And then finally, sixth initiative, transforming public services to integrations between business requirements, policy, operations, and technology. This is very vital, starting from the digital transformation policy to digital government policy, and all these areas to make sure that we have the necessary frameworks and policies in place. So we are given a special focus in this area because it's that important. And I'm pretty sure this will very much interest all of you participate in today's forum. And this is my final slide. This is the digital government framework. I saw Mr. Mahinda presenting it, so I'm not going to go into detail, but I have highlighted an area, line of business solution. This is where, as Cdios, your focus would be in your organizations, in your domains, how you could contribute to improve the internal organizations' internal efficiency and offering services, having citizens or businesses in mind. So, so we are, as I explained earlier, our values, our strategies, and the initiative that we have found, essentially to facilitate what you do in these domains. So with that note, I'm going to complete my speech, also with the final comment saying, at any time with all these initiatives, please do reach us, and we will be more than, myself and my team and ICTA will be more than pleased to facilitate wherever initiative that you want to embark in. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the organizations and for the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kanchana Thudugala. Dr. Rohantha Rodrigo, who spearheads the digital services arm of the ICTA as its chief officer, will guide you through the digital technology and services delivery strategy of ICTA.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and thanks a lot for the extended ICTA team for organizing this. So I essentially wear two hats. One is making sure the underlying technology, the solutioning and the architecture of networks, platforms, software continues to happen in an excellent manner. And then there's digital services, and where this is as the CEO pointed out, this is a relatively new vertical. And essentially, if you take a step back, it's a lot to do with sustainability, which I will elaborate a little bit later. It's to do with supporting IT platforms, solutions, consulting, and so on, and such areas. So let me take a step back a little bit and then tell you why, amongst all others, you gentlemen and ladies and gentlemen are very much importance to me to make my work more efficient and capable. So if you look at the government digitization projects worldwide, one of the reasons for some of them failing is a lack of a full life cycle management, handholding, support, encouragement, lack of processes, and the overall system. This was alluded to by our chairman as well as the CEO. And the management felt, the board felt that it has to be addressed, and hence the creation of this new vertical. So, I will just, since my colleagues already talked about it and kind of elaborated at the high level, what I thought of doing this time is to just give you an idea of our direction. So in terms of service offerings, so you will see how the pieces that especially Kanchana, the last speaker, mentioned fits into place. So as most of you are aware, we have the Lanka government network. So what are we going to do in the future? We are trying to come up with version 3 of it, which will provide a lot more flexibility, security, improved pricing, and so on. So we are aware of the limitations of the current system when it comes to being agile and and fast moving. So that is going to get addressed in the months to come. Then the Lanka government cloud. Again, the way we are going to offer it is being redesigned, and we'll be able to scale up much faster with more tools and platforms to support the emerging requirements that comes our way. The next 2 bullet items, my colleague already spoke about it, so I will not really touch on it too much. Another one, what we want to do is to improve our self portal to make it more seamless for you. I'll talk about it a little bit later. And then one of the current topics about backup. As most of you are aware, we already have the capability to provide backups. But what we have been planning for some time now is to make it more seamless and more ease of use. So there's more options and functionality to make it happen in a much more smoother way than what is available right now. And then we want to provide users with a disaster recovery site, which is essentially the LGC, the Lanka government cloud being hosted at a separate location. That should come in about a year's time. Then, or even soon actually, if assuming the rate we are doing, the redesign happens faster. Then we already provide cPanel web hosting, very popular amongst a number of government organizations. So then extension of the already existing email facilities to a much larger group. We are working on that. Then video conferencing, issue tracking, file storage, messaging, and so on are the areas that we want to introduce as we move forward. Some of these, as I put the dates on the rightmost column, are already available, and the others are on test. Some of the areas, I want to mention that, we will be introducing after checking to see the actual demand for it, we are fairly convinced that there is a demand, but we are not entirely sure about the maturity to make it some of these things actually happen. So then GIC and government help is already there, but we are working to make it extend the scope, as in the sense of more areas to be covered and the depth of it, like what, to what depth it will go into, as well as support multi-platform. So that means it will not only be a phone call, but you will also be able to use other social media to make it more practical for the modern users. Service desk is something we already have. We want to extend that support. Then we are introducing a new consultation service. It has already been there to some extent, specifically in the area of solution architecture and all that. But we want to introduce other areas like business analysis, project management, procurement management, development and deployment, operation and support, and so on. Another area I'm very interested is data analytics. But to be very honest, I have not seen too much of a demand and appreciation to that effect right now. There seems to be a certain, I'm not entirely sure about our maturity, not only just to do analytics, but actually use the recommendations coming out of it, which needs certain tweaks into the way we do things. And then last but not least, something very important, information security. So together with SL Cert, we are going to introduce more consulting and security scans in partnership, obviously, as I said, with SL Cert. Something very important, and which I want all of you to make sure that happens in the areas that you are responsible for. Outside of that, ease of engagement is something we are very keen to follow because right now, as you know, there's so much of documentation going up and down, and a lot of other things like which ones to choose, which solution to choose, and so on and so forth. So we are taking a few steps at a time to keep on improving it. There is no end date for it, because, as you know, any service can continue to get improved. So we are always taking steps on that direction. And then, together with my colleagues in the digital economy vertical, we are working to identify the skills required to make our solutions work, because we are responsible not just for introducing some service, but also to make it spread throughout all government bodies, as long as obviously they require that service. But as I mentioned at the start, we need to be able to sustain it. And again, I'm repeating, I will be depending on the Cdios extremely. You will be my best friends to make these things happen and sustain. So I'm sure we'll be talking a lot as we go on. So good luck, and really appreciate this very timely initiative being launched. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rohanth Rodrigo. The digital economy pillar is vital to enable a digitally inclusive, prosperous Sri Lanka. To make us aware about how it is going to become a reality, I would like to invite the Chief Digital Economy Officer of ICTA, Mr. Anuradhi Alves.
Thank you so much, Pavani. Am I audible, Pavani?
Yes, clear.
And my presentation is seen?
Yes, we can see.
Yeah. Okay. Good morning. Very welcome all of you, and Honorable Secretary, Mr. Jayantri Silva, Chairman, Mr. Oshada Senanayaka, CEO, Mr. Mahinda B. Herath, and other government officials, and my colleagues at ICTA. So let me walk you through very quickly what the digital economy pillar does that our CEO has been explaining, and about the different pillars. And then my colleagues, Kanchana, Jayanta, Rohanta has been talking about different things. So let us understand what's the role of the digital economy and how it is interconnected to all these pieces in the entire puzzle. So digital economy, essentially, I don't want to go through an laborious discussion around these components of the digital economy, but want to tell you that, like our earlier speakers spoke about, we have set our guidelines and goals for 2024. And that includes a development of the industry. It has the technology industry. It has a startup ecosystem. As you know, that's very successfully. By now in Sri Lanka, we have grown 13% last year, the digital economy, with $132 million investment so far. So it has gone really well, but it's not enough. So, but we are focusing on the startup ecosystem as well. We have the technology diffusion, that is taking technology into non-technological industries or non-technological core businesses such as agriculture, health, etc. We have the capacity building. Now, the capacity building program, you can see particularly how digital economy is connected with the rest of the things. Not that the other parts are not connected, but this is very well gluing part of the entire focus of ICTA, because we have to create the right workforce for the local digital industry, the export industry, as well as for the government. We have to also supporting this program to develop the Cdios, Chief Digital Information Officers for the government. So this is the first step towards that, but we have a longer way to go and get all of my friends joining today from government to help you to successfully take some of you to some of these roles. So we are very much glued from that point of view to the entire government transformation as well as the country. And finally, we have the regional clusters, which you know our Honorable Secretary may speak about a few words about it, the technoparks, creating of the regional clusters, and making sure that we are creating a conducive environment for each cluster to prosper rather than focusing only on Colombo-centric economy. No, we are not going to do that. We want to create cluster-focused economy, and there are a lot of actions and activities happening. So this is basically the 5 areas that digital economy manage, but it has a particularly one capacity that's very well connected. To drive you and make you more understand, this is a diagram that I'm not going to talk a lot, but just to let you know how we have instrumentalized this in the integrated picture and how have we operationalize this. Now you can see the regional cluster being the middle, which is connecting to government, the policies and the infrastructure, working with all the industry agencies, TRC, plus also with the rest of the ministries to make sure that we understand the region's need, whether it's education need, whether it's a small business need, whether it's a government need, all of that, and work with the rest of the pillars. Then it's actually widening out to the technology industry development, to the startup ecosystem on the right hand, to the bottom, to the technology diffusion, and left to the capacity building. Particularly on the capacity building, as I spoke earlier, you can see major areas like education, where my cursor is, and the government capacity building and citizen capacity building. So these 3 are very important things, because no economy will grow just by working on the industries, because I myself represent the industry. I myself come from the industry, and I work with the state today to develop that, because we cannot just expect industry to develop and have the rest of the parts falling. We have to make sure the citizens, the education, as well as the most important one, the government piece, grown fairly successfully. Because every grown economy, digital economy, every grown developed country has considered serious efforts onto the digital government piece. I wanted to also bring some of the accolades that we have had in the past few years. When you look at, we have won the number of industry awards from the Destination of the Year to the A.T. Kearney number one in the financial, Tollens, and recently going to the right-hand side in the World Economic Forum. We have also won the South Asia's the Doing Business Index Better. We are right now working on GSLI, that is Global Service Locator Indication. Likewise, a lot of things, but all of them are, once again, my dear friends, related to the industry. There has to be a key focus with this industry to go the rest of the government. That is our critical role in this new role and the form of working with you all. Again, another Gartner finding, why it is so important. And that research has revealed, I think it's last year or this year beginning, 80% of the government organized still in the initial stage of the transformation. Another important fact is that I wanted to show you that, again, it's indicated those who have gone to digital channels and digital ways of doing business have 3.5 time advantage of working with the people, the citizens, and creating that convenience and doing business better. 3.5 times. It's not twice, it's 3.5. So it's essential we work and we transform our government through this transformation process to get that advantage of 3 or 4 or 5 times of the trailing parts. It is also important to understand, it's a hype about this digital transformation. I think the role of the friends joining from the government sectors today, your role also has a huge role to understand the optimization, which means things that are in place today, things that are working really well today, whether we can improve them, get the maximum out of that before we transform and spend more money. So remember, it is not only just changing things, but also leveraging and taking the best out of the current things in your plates today. And then another one, some of the performance indicators, not just Sri Lanka, but global. You can see the shift. This is a golden opportunity, my dear colleagues and friends, to make use of the current opportunity to shift the focus and get the best out of the digital, because there will be no time that we will have this kind of opportunity. I'm not saying that COVID-19 happened and it done good to the world, but I'm trying to say is there's a huge opportunity created, not only private sector, government sector, to invest more money and transform. And this is actually proven in 2021 compared to 2020 and before, that an amount of money spent, amount of effort spent, amount of capital and also the human capital as well as the funding has spent to develop the transformation. It's a golden opportunity and we should not miss Sri Lanka. I know that there are a number of agencies come forward, World Bank, UNDP, different agencies support us. So we should also make use of those opportunities to transform. 67% of the government organization trying to do transformation, but only 5% are achieving. Again, a Gartner finding. I must tell you, remind you that that is exactly the reason I'm saying that optimize and get the best use of the existing things, transform, but with a clear focus. How do we get a clear focus? Because we need to have clear roles identified and their roles should be really defined. And that is with that view, we bring this Government Sri Lanka Cdio, where we want to, as ICTA, educate, give the right level of training, provide real essence of what it is. And we are not working alone. We have worked with the UNDP, we have worked with the ICTA, we have worked with the UK government digital organization, we work with the Estonian government organization, number of organizations we worked with the last 3-4 months to form this entire structure that my colleague Samira will present later. But our role here is educate, support you, empower, whatever the way we can work with the different ministries through MOT, our secretary support, all of you to work together and empower you and make sure that we have a KPI set and evaluate that. Because on the left-hand side, you can say we have created a digital maturity model, because we are not going to tell you just how to grow the CDIO, but also to say how to grow the entire organization that the CDIO will be working. So we'll have got the model already done, which will be shared in a later stage. that covers strategy, customer and technology focus, and data and technology focus, organizational culture, and operational focus. So all these 5 aspects will be assessed. We have used, again, models like TDM, models like Deloitte to compare with and also we work with the Sri Lankan expert panel to make sure that maturity model also support so that it can be assessed, roadmap can be developed and support and grow. Once again, my dear friends, we as ICTA will not only develop these programs and educate, but they also hold hands to transform your organization, optimize and get the best results out. With that, my discussion has come, or my presentation has come to the end. I hope you got the understanding of what we are trying to do as a digital economy, how we work with the rest of the organization, and how we connect you to the rest of the world. There is another session coming later that I can tell you another connecting dots kind of scenario we are working on. Thank you so much. All the very best. I'm handing back to Pavani.
Thank you very much, Mr. Anurudhi Alves. As one of our feature presentations today, we have Ms. Amar Akanayaka, Head of IT at Lion Brewery. As an innovative business leader with over 20 years of experience in applied technology for better business outcomes in manufacturing, food and beverages, healthcare, leisure and travel, logistics, supply chain, power generation, and BPO domains. Ms. Akanayaka will share her experience leading Lion Brewery as its head of IT into digitized era.
Thank you, Pavani. Good morning, everyone. Many countries today have embraced this digital evolution, and I'm happy to see that as a nation, we too have thought progressively to embark on this digital journey. I'm humbled for the opportunity you have provided for me to be part of this initiative as a CIO representing the private sector and to share a few thoughts and experience of my own. With technology becoming a major enabler for business, the role of the CIO has evolved from technology expert to a business strategist. With increasing expectations, CIOs today are facing unique challenges to improve business outcomes, transform business models, modernize technology, and enhance customer experience. Many changes made in response to COVID-19 will continue to accelerate because they make business sense. For example, customers and citizens shifted their activity online during the lockdown, increasing demand for new digital products and services as well as self-service use. This shift will increase in 2021 and beyond. CEOs are now looking towards digital as a key driver of business growth and the transformation. Most frequently mentioned words in the boardroom conversations are digital, change, business continuity, and cybersecurity. Needless to say that with the growing digitalization efforts, the cybersecurity threat continues to grow and evolve. There's a lot of data collected, processed, analyzed using various digital technologies. Organizations face incredible pressure and responsibility when it comes to protecting data. There's significant increase in cybersecurity incidents since 2000, which has only increased with the COVID-19 pandemic. CIOs play a critical role in safeguarding organizational assets by implementing cyber risk mitigation plans. I think they are the best suited for the role as they understand the technology, which has also made CIOs more visible within most of the organizations today. COVID-19 pandemic forced organizations to accelerate their digital transformation efforts. Gartner points out that 90% of boards report accelerating digital business initiatives in response to COVID-19. As a CIO, I have the opportunity to play a leading role in digital business acceleration in my organization. CIOs like me have become critical roles within the organization. We educating CEOs, boards, and other senior stakeholders on the value of technology. Also, spending on the technology and cyber security has seen an increase in most of the organizations. As a CIOs, we have become a critical in developing and implementing cost optimization strategies within organizations. CIOs have used this crisis as an opportunity to increase or modernize IT tools and build a scalable, agile IT infrastructure using cloud technologies and improve security positions in the organization. Today, the cyber risk treatment framework and the methodologies are much different compared to what it was. Assessing the security posture of the organization and continuous improvement of this security position of the organization has become a key responsibility of the CIO or CDO in this aggressive digitalization. The pandemic has proven that remote working is a very possible alternative. As a CIO in the business, many new policies, procedures had to be implemented within a very short period to support this new hybrid working arrangement. Another essential role of the CIO is to create employee awareness on technology as well as cybersecurity. We all know human beings are still the weakest link in any organization's digital security system. People make mistakes, forget things, or fall for any fraudulent practices. That's where the cybersecurity awareness comes in. The message need to be shared and the culture need to be created by the CIO is that the cybersecurity is everyone's responsibility. In summary, CIOs in an organizations are expected to be a dynamic and strategic individuals who will play a key role in business transformation. I understand that there are exciting plans ahead with the government's digital transformation and key initiatives lined up for Sri Lanka. I believe the government sector CDIOs will have to play a leading role in this digital economy. And I am sure they will enjoy the ride and find many more opportunities to develop themselves as a frontiers of nation's digital transformation. And I'm happy to note that you have taken a great initiatives to develop these individuals in collaboration with various experts in the government and private sectors. Once again, thank you very much for inviting me to address this forum and share my experience as a CIO in a public organization. Thank you. Over to you, Pawan.
Thank you very much, Ms. Amar Akanayaka. Next, I would like to invite Mr. Samir Jayawardena, Director Capacity Building at ICTA, to take you through the approach in capacity building and the holistic overview of the government's Cdio Initiative.
Okay, thank you, Bhavani. Thank you so much. So let me share my screen with you. Hope I'm audible and visible, Bhavani.
Yes, clear.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So very good morning to all of you. Thank you so much for joining us today. So I'll be, in brief, I'll be walking through the capacity building approach and the government Cdio initiative. So let's move on. So in brief, in nutshell, so where are we heading? Now we are thinking of a nation where technology-based society by 2024. So that means we talk about, like in transformation, there's a buzzword called general purpose technology or GPT. So where the technology becomes general.
So we expect digital to become general by 2024 so that everybody would be able to consume digital effectively on their day-to-day life. So to enable that, obviously, we need to make a significant transformation in the education system to make them more employable and capable youth to achieve the desired outcomes of the digital economy. And obviously, we need to facilitate the government sector transformation, which is a considerable cultural shift. And we also need to make sure social transformation is being take place to consume the benefits of digital technology. So that's why the capacity building is in place. So again, very brief, this slide comes directly from the digital economy strategy, which is approved from the Cabinet of Ministers and His Excellency the President. So we have 5 goals associated with capacity building. One comes under the workforce, that is building adequate workforce and competent individuals, youth, to produce the capable resources to the industry. Then uplift the competencies of citizens about digital citizenship, digital intelligence, and digital literacy. Then the third one is very importantly on government Cdios and public sector digital literacy and public sector governance or the ICT division, so the digital transformation units. So I'm not going into details in this slide. This is in a nutshell. So where are we heading? So this comes under the capacity building trust area. Under the Cdio initiative, which is focused on government sector digital transformation. So if we break into the approach to capacity building for government, now what's our end state? Now we are looking for a citizen-centric digital government. So that's the end state we are looking at. So citizens should be able to consume digital effectively to transact and interact with the government. So to enable this, we need to make a considerable cultural shift of the government, which will produce us a digital savvy government. So that if we take the government, or in that case in any enterprise, so competent people would be the utmost important pillar which will make the transformation happen. It will and sustain the transformation, the benefits of the transformation. So once you have competent people in place, you can make an efficient organization with the processes so that we can provide more effective services to citizens. So that's the thinking line aligned with the government strategy of digital government. So we do have 3 flagship initiatives. Now, we can see 3 initiatives. The digital maturity model for the government. So hopefully we would be able to, have the digital maturity model ready and launched within a couple of months. So it's been formulated right now so that government organization can understand where are they fitting in terms of digital maturity in the digital transformation journey in their organization. Then we are also working towards building 500 digital transformation units, dedicated units in 500 government organizations. That is also being formulated right now. But today, the main focus would be on 500 government Cdio initiative. That is actually would be the pillar initiative which assists the government to transform itself to a digitally capable government. So the middle one you can see. So with these pillar 3 projects, the middle one is the capacitating 100,000 next-gen government officers that cut across all 5 layers: leadership, management, or the middle management, the technical or the IT, and the operational staff and support staff. So all layers would be touched with this 100,000 next-gen capacity building initiative. And we have a digital maturity assessment coming up, and competency frameworks have already been drafted. It's being reviewed right now. And we have established few partnerships, and there will be more to come. And we are having digital government forums kick off. So this is a holistic approach, how we're going to make the government capacitate, so which will produce us the digital savvy government by 2024. So let's get into the today's discussion focal point on Chief Digital Information Officer. Now, what's the vision and mission of this Cdio initiative? As you can see, the vision is about excellence in leadership. Now, Cdio is floating as leadership player. He will be the definite person who would really make a significant transformation in the respective government organization. So ultimately, they will bring the transformation to the entire government of Sri Lanka. Then empowering and capacitate CDIOs to drive the government digital transformation. That's the mission. That's how we're going to achieve this vision. Then, so why the significance of this CDIO initiative? We all know, I mean, the previous speakers have mentioned from the word go, from the chairman to CEO to all CXOs have explained how everything in place towards a digitally capable Sri Lanka or digitally inclusive, prosperous Sri Lanka. So in that sense, so CDIO in the government have a significant role to play. So it's about rapid digital government transformation we're going to take place in upcoming years. So it's a cultural shift, and you have to have evangelists and who could really drive this. You could really facilitate this. You could really promote this across the government so that he can contribute to a sustainable progressive development in the government. So importantly, most important thing would be we got to have a operating model with self-reliance so that government can on its own, the institutions can on its own should be able to sustain, and they can have their digital strategies formulated, implemented, aligned with the national vision and national digital transformation journey. So that's how the significance of the CIO initiative would be aligned with the national digital transformation journey. So when it comes to the specific assignment of CDIOs, now we work with multiple entities on this. So focusing on designing and adopting the CDIO model, which fit into the upcoming digital government transformation. So we assess the best models, and we look how we're going to absorb the best out of the existing pool of resources we have in the government, while we are bringing in some external capable people from the industry, and how the CDIO can play the evangelist, the change management, or the change agent role, so that they can be the capable people who will be really driving the government transformation within the organization. So those are the specific objectives and the overall objective. I'm not going one by one, but you can see there are 5 specific objectives aligning with the overall objective. So this is the approach we took. Now, actually, the entire thing kicked off like early 2000, actually 2021, this year. The earlier studies, we started working with the best digital services in the globe. Actually, you know, the United Kingdom has leapfrogged from many positions in e-government readiness index, UN, and there's a new trend of getting, you know, digital services established across the government in many successful countries. So we worked with them. In fact, we worked with through the United Nations Development Program, ICTA. They supported us bridging the public digital, the responsible arm for UK transformation in this area with us, and jointly. So it was developed with a proper framework, the assets assessment and best practices study, and inspiring with the government strategy and the government vision. Also, we had like internal consultative sessions and the interviews, workshop, focus group discussions, and some secondary data sources studied when they have come up with the recommendations. So that's how the entire recommendations or the new model has been formulated. So we would also like to extend thanks at this junction for the Citra Labs, UNDP, and Public Digital UK. I mean, it was a fantastic effort, including some of our resources from the government of Sri Lanka. So what was the outcome? So this is the future CDIO. Now we know there's a role called CIO, or the Chief Information Officer in general in the enterprises or the private sector. And you also have a Chief Digital Officer. So it has considerable amount of span of work. So what we come up with, the CDIO concept, it's a blend of the CIO and CDO. So we call him or her called CDIO, Chief Digital Information Officer, who is responsible for the leading all aspects of IT and digital strategy of the respective government organization. So having the right person, right conditions, and right support being established by the government of Sri Lanka would be our challenge and our job. So that's where are we heading right now. So to facilitate that, this framework has formulated. I'll go from left to right. From the top layer, you can see the potential inflow. And we also make how to identify the right person. Then the most important part would be the capacity building and make them real competent. And we can really call them as chief digital information officers so that they can perform their role at their institutions. And importantly, how we're going to institutionalize this. And they should be capable enough. Also, they should be empowered to work on that organization, on that layer, with the adequate capacities and the empowerment from the government itself, so that we can make a CDIO who is a transformational leader himself or herself, and should be facilitator who has hands of experience or hands of knowledge and competent enough to make this a success. They will make this digital government a positive transformation within their respective organizations. So it should be facilitated with the CDIO governance framework and governance approach, which will be taken care of by the government of Sri Lanka at a top level area, so that that can be supported throughout. The CDIOs will be empowered and they will be capacitated. So you can see the inflow can be from the government capable people and the experts from the industry. And we do have already drafted the competency framework, and competency profiles are already done. And the absorption and acquisition would be the approach to identify and hiring metrics also being formulated. Then building capacities, the capacity building, identify the competency profiles and what are accredited courses, and the capacity building delivery models, the partnerships, exchange programs, apprenticeships, and everything also have been parallelly formulated with this. This is actually a kind of a comprehensive framework which consists all these components that I'm talking here right now, and the institutional approach. So this is in a nutshell what the CDIO framework consists of. So the ICTA with the Ministry of Technology is actually Ministry of Technology is spearheading, and ICTA will be engaging throughout the entire adoption of this framework, and making CDIOs capacitated, empowered, and moves on with the digital government transformation. So how would be the way forward? Now today, so we had the CDIO launch. So we had the red line here. So I think it's glad to see everybody, I mean, most of the eminent resources in this area, join us today from the government, industry, and ICTA, Ministry of Technology, and few other entities, industry associations. So, so this is what we have. We have completed so far. We completed the skills mapping and study and the model done, and also appointed a resource panel. We would be able to hear that later part of today on how it's going to move on with the mentorship program and CDIO launch. So how would be the way forward? Just after this, actually, we have already completed the initial drafts, already completed on competency framework and hiring metrics with the government digital UK, and then we are planning to kick off the CIO training assessment and CIO assessment part with the hiring metrics by end of this month, so that we can go ahead with the real adoption of this with the circular from the Ministry of Technology. And we have already started working on strategic partnerships, and we are planning to capacitate with low-hanging fruit, or the people, those who are really competent, who can really can be acquire from the existing ecosystem, the government, up to 550 CDIOs during this year, and have a kind of a dedicated program running on, which is also being currently drafted, so that we can have 50 CDIOs, real CDIOs, get ready for the graduation by end of this year. So you can show the way forward. The CIO CDIO forum also will get established, and we'll move on with 200 on next year and 400 on next year. So which will be eventually contributing for us to get into the 500 mark of CDIOs. So in very brief, I would like to mention, so you don't have to take CDIO as an isolated initiative. As I mentioned earlier, there's another initiative parallelly going on, digital maturity, another initiative parallelly going on, digital transformation units, And there's a government-wide change management drive with capacitating 100,000 next-gen gov officers. So altogether, we are expecting to do a considerable shift, cultural shift in the government organization with having a capable, positive evangelist who can really drive the digital transformation on their respective government organizations and the government of Sri Lanka. So with that, I conclude the presentation. Again, thank you so much for joining us. So over to you, Bhavani.
Thank you, Mr. Samir Jayawardena. Next, we are going to move to the most important feature of today's event, the launch of Cdio Initiative. We would like to invite Mr. Jayantha De Silva, Secretary of the Ministry of Technology, to launch the Cdio framework.
The government of Sri Lanka is making a significant transformation in the nation's ICT landscape, with government organizations set to revolutionize processes and service delivery unlike ever before. ICTA is making holistic and unified capacity development towards digitally transformed government. Towards this end, ICTA has embarked on an unprecedented initiative to introduce a pool of capable digital leaders expected to drive transformation at institutional level within a rebranded all-new position entitled CDIO, Chief Digital Information Officer. Cdio is set to transform the government organization's traditional processes into a digital and citizen-centric service delivery by implementing digital initiatives through the use of digital tools, services, and technologies. Cdio will drive strategy, decision-making, and policy formulation much effectively for the organization. From tackling the lack of solutions at government organizations that lack access to information, absence of proper IT systems, the hassle of getting things done, and resolving wastage of time and inefficiency, the CDIO is a crucial position for the future of digitally capable Sri Lanka. The CDIO will support the digital transformation of the organization with a vision to enable excellence in leadership for the transformation of a digitally transformed government. ICTA embarks on a comprehensive capacity building program to make CDIOs up to date and capable to drive with excellence, while securing many benefits and recognition, including academic empowerment and professional development, mentored with industry digital leaders, opportunities to collaborate with global networks and body of knowledge, the annual award ceremony, and much more. ICTA hopes to enroll up to 500 CDIOs by the year 2024 into the public sector of Sri Lanka. Are you ready for the challenge? Are you the next CDIO? The Chief Digital Information Officer is set to change the IT landscape of public sector organizations to be a part of a citizen-centric digital government as the nation journeys towards fast-tracking digital transformation and the greater good for the future of an IT-literate Sri Lanka in the years to come. CDIO, Chief Digital Information Officer.
Thank you very much. I would like to invite Mr. Jayantha De Silva, who is at the helm of all ensuring the realization of a digital Sri Lanka as the Secretary of the Ministry of Technology, to give the keynote speech for today's event.
Okay. Good morning, all of you, distinguished speakers, and all participants of this program. My colleagues at ICTA, a very good morning to you. You have heard a lot of speakers talking about this program and about the ambitious programs that we are planning and we have done during the recent past. But I would like to start this speech in a different way. We talk about many aspects of digitalization, latest solutions, different stages in the world history. And today, of course, I don't have to talk about those things. But where are we heading? Now, in time to time, there were many infrastructure projects that drive or was responsible to drive human beings. We had very lately, if I talk about irrigation infrastructure, civil infrastructure, air infrastructure, sea infrastructure, like that it goes on. Sri Lanka, one of the largest ever projects handled in our part of the world was Mahavali irrigation infrastructure. Though people don't realize it, it has changed the whole ecosystem of this country. When we started this project, we have a lot of ambitions. Though the country has changed, if you really look back of the objectives that we had in the Mahavali project, which is one of the biggest in the world, if I say, only about 30 to 40% have been achieved. If we had achieved that today, we would have been one of the leading countries in the world exporting agriculture products, high value agriculture products, which would have paved the way for a brilliant country today. And it would have solved, I would say almost, I won't say almost, all the challenges and the problems that we have today. We were concentrating on high value products, which could be sometimes grown only in our part of the world. I'm not going into detail, but just I want to build an analogy. So what do we talk about today? The developed countries, the donor countries. Now they talk about digital infrastructure. If I come to our topic today, it is public digital infrastructure. If you talk about air infrastructure, even before a plane in the nature of Airbus, large Airbus, or even the 300 or whatever 380, it's first what they do is build capacity to pilot the airplane. If it's a sea ship, they would do the same. So today, I'm just trying to explain to you, if we are talking about an infrastructure, a digital infrastructure, do we have the capacity to drive this? When we look back, when we took over ICTA, I do not want to talk much about it, to be very honest. But I would say successive governments have decided and invested a lot of money on the so-called digital infrastructure, though we didn't call it that way. Just to give you a few examples, the ID card project was started 22 years ago. but we couldn't do it. Go on like that. If you very recently, we came out with the digital signature almost about 10 years ago. Still, it is not actually in the right place. Many other projects are of this nature. So when we planned huge projects for the next 2 years, like the UID project, the court automation project, the technoparks, and so on. I can go on and on. One of the biggest challenges that we faced was, do we have the capacity, or do we have the drivers, or do we have the people to drive this? Most of these projects have failed due to adoption problems. We have not gone into wider adoption. This is sometimes not only in Sri Lanka, not only in the public sector, even in the private sector where we still work, has this problem. Now, how has the other countries overcome this? When we analyzed, or you don't have to analyze to be very honest, when you talk about common sense, one of the biggest drawbacks was the capacity within the user. Maybe it is government, maybe it is private sector, maybe it is banks. And when with such a pace we are moving, with so much of integration, for instance, the railways, the post officers, the police, go on and on. And if you want schools, universities, ID cards, departments, people. So when you go on and on, the biggest challenge that one would face is how we should go for a wider adoption. So one of the key aspects that we, or ICTA, took as an initiative, I at this moment congratulate ICTA for taking this initiative, is to ensure that we build capacity within the user. Because when I personally had interactions with some of these government entities, I found that some of these places run beautifully, even better than some of the private sector places. If you go and really analyze that, then of course you see that it is been driven by a person who has passion. So he has done it through his own passion, but not with a standard or a formal way of doing it. We have gone to public sector places, and we took the examples of some of these places, and we found that it's obviously the passion, of course, we all have to have, but we should have a formal way of building this capacity. And thus came the Cdio program. Because we understand that we, in the government sector, we take the best technically, best people into the government sector. But then we had to have a formal program building the capacity. In my personal opinion, actually, it's a matter of building talent. So we took a decision, or ICTA took a decision in bringing up this program, which I'm not going to discuss about it. Because you all, by now, you know, and it's a beautiful, very, very good program, a very simple program that would be initiated by the government and obviously spearheaded by ICTA. So we call upon all of you to be part of it. Please help us, because this is the only way. Technology and science is the only way that this country can be developed. Just before I conclude, I just want to give one more thing, talk about one more thing. Cdio program only would not be the driver, or we can't do the whole national program. So when you're talking about a national program, we have several other areas that we have planned. One is the communication. I'm sure the chairman, ICTA, is the main person who is driving this. Gamata Sannivedana program. And also, I should say, I don't know whether you already aware that we are going to fiberize 10,200 schools by next year. This is going to be a national project, which is going to be one of the first in the world, giving facility to school teachings. Law, because we have to address the law layer. We have done it very well, and I give full credit to our legal department headed by Mr. Jayantha Fernando, who has done a yeoman service in bringing this into the present status. You all know the digital signature. Then the Cyber Security Act, Data Protection Act. All these are in place and it's about to be implemented very soon. This is extremely important. So parallelly, as we are doing some of the largest projects ever handled by this country, we are 100% sure that the unique ID project will come into being next year. We have already started the Techno Park, which are with a passion of His Excellency the President. We have already started the GOAL project. A new company by the name of Technoparks Development Private Limited has been formed. And we are laying the foundation for GOAL next week. We are starting Kurunagal, Kandy, and Nuwara and Habarana. I assure you that we will come to the media and to you soon, but I assure you that these parks would be much, much better than any of these existing parks in the world. And in my opinion, these parks are going to be the best in the world for a young generation. And also, we want major companies, the big companies, to come and house their operations. This is going to change. This is going to be a game changer in this country. So I can go on and on speaking about our projects. One other project that we have taken on, or the government and ICTA, as well as the Ministry of Justice, is the court automation project, which will bring a lot of transparency than any of these developed countries that we are boasting. Every proceeding would be video recorded and voice recorded. This will bring huge transparency on everything that we do, as well as on legally. So these are things that we have done very genuinely. And at the moment, before I conclude, I thank ICTA for a great initiative. And I know how our boys and girls are now passionate about this. And whatever that you need help from the government, I assure you. And I ask all the audience and all the people to help us in our program, as we are very, very genuine in doing this. We don't want any political things coming into our projects because we are private sector people. We don't have any alignment to anyone. We just want to ensure that this country prosper and the young boys and girls in this country stays in this country and they are happy crowd. And this is going to be a very developed country in the very near future. I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jayant Silva. To help drive the initiative, we will have mentors to help us. Mr. Aradi Alves will now introduce our panel of mentors and how they will contribute to make the Cdio mentoring effort a success.
All right, thank you. Can you hear me now, Amma? Sorry, Pavani?
Yes,
we can.
Yeah, thanks. And you can see my screen as well.
Yes, we can see.
Once again, thank you so much, Secretary, for inspirational as always, giving us the way forward and giving us hope and always, as always, trusting us, believing us, and also giving us confidence and assurance that your support will be always there. Now, as I said in the beginning, which Samira, my colleague, talked about it in length about the program that is launched today. And we said that we have the education, we have the empowering part, we also want to get the evaluation, but we can't let this go on its own without the proper support and understanding and mentoring coming in. Like I said, we looked at when we create this model, we looked at different countries. We looked and supported from the UNDP, ICTA, and then also from Estonian government, different places we had connections. But finally, we thought to make it real success, there's no point talking about private sector and public sector. End of the day, it's Sri Lanka. End of the day, it's government of Sri Lanka and Sri Lanka as a nation that we need to transform. To do that and go that tough journey, we thought it would be much easier if we blend these together, meaning that get the private sector also work with us. In order to do that, we thought we should bring a resource panel, initially 6 members, being a sounding board, and always where these public CDIOs can, when the pool is created and the training mentoring starts, where they can approach them to get vetted some of their ideas, ask some of the support, validate and verify some of their thinking, innovations, etc. So this will act as a sounding board. Why? Because we know there's no point talking about there's a gap between private and public sector if we don't try to bridge that. This is one of the best ways we can bridge, bringing them gelling together. Unfortunately, because of the COVID restrictions, we couldn't have this physically. If we had it, we would have been having a session that you interact and gel and get together, get to know them. And now I have the pleasure and privilege of introducing some of my industry colleagues into this resource panel, who this public sector CDIO program candidates can approach. First, I introduce the group CIO of John Keells Holdings, Ramesh Shanmuganathan, who's a doctor in business administration. He's got a PhD and MBA, master's, and BSc and BCS. He's a BCS member. He's today the executive vice president of John Keells as well. He also a member of Forbes Business Council and convener and chair of the Sri Lankan CIO Forum. He's got a lot of experience, 25 years plus experience. He's been in John Keells. He's himself an innovator and John Keells, all of these startup ecosystem development. He's one of the very few people we known for many years being inspirational leader and have his own vision and very publicly giving support. And so I'm having the pleasure of first introducing Ramesh to this panel. Second, Anoja Basnayaka with BSc and PMP. She's today the director of Bauer and Company. You might be known very well to her. She's the vice president of professional development of board member of PMI as well. She's got 25 years experience with PMI as well, and partly qualified on CIMA. She has, as we speak, she's transforming her organizations to the new ERP as well. She has got a lot of specializations and experience on transforming organizations, particularly in the private sector. And today she do a very, very vital role in Bowers. Third, I have Mr. Madhu Ratnayaka, MBA, BEng. He's the EVP and CIO of Virtusa, member of the board of ICTA. He's one of our board members, HNB, SL Cert, and CISI National Advisory Council member. Madhu has been instrumental in a lot of educational curriculum development, capacity building, transformation programs in Sri Lanka. And he has 25 years or 30 years plus experience in this arena, internationally known. I must tell you that he was identified as within the first 100 transformation technology leaders of the globe recently. He's the 61st identified person of that list. I'm really pleasure and congratulating him on that as well. So Madhu is the third member of this panel. We have fourth, we call him Kuga, KV Kuganathan. He's an MBCS. He's got chartered, an MSc in IT. He's a group CIO of Janashakti Group, chairman of British Computer Society, board member of BCS as well, UK, and he's holding number of positions in the Janashakti Group. He's got over 23 years of experience, a solid leader and an executor. I've been known him for a long time. He's also instrumental in transforming and supporting education, professional education in the country. A great transformation leader. So I'm happy he's also accepted to become the resource panel member. I have next, who was the earlier speaker, Amar Akanayaka, qualified in Australian Computer Society. And she's actually the head of the IT in Lion Brewery, member of Australian Computer Society. She's again has been working in leisure, travel, logistics, food and beverage, many industries, being a very good transformation leader. And also I must tell that Amma and Anoja is also female CIOs we have in the country in the private sector. So I'm having privilege again to introduce her to this panel. Finally, Jihan Mutalib, BSc. She is the Chief Digital Officer of Mass Holdings, 19 plus years of engaging in multicultural teams and worked in Denmark, experience with Denmark, Netherlands, Switzerland, UK, Italy, and Sri Lanka. He's also led the projects in SAP and IBM works earlier. He's gone into the consulting practices in Europe as well. He's one of the SAP experienced person and one of again, a transformation leaders in apparel industry. I have again privileged to introduce Jehan. As you can see, we've got real solid private sector experience blending with the public sector to make sure this is not only supported by courses, curriculums, and other frameworks, but also blending and making sure the gap is reduced. Thank you so much. Again, I welcome all of them. Congratulations. Thank you so much. Handing back to you, Pavani.
Thank you, Mr. Anuruddha. Next, we have Mr. Ramesh Shanmuganathan, who needs absolutely no introduction to address the gathering. He provides stewardship for the John Kears Group, 70 plus companies, spanning 7 industries, with a market capitalization of US $1.4 billion and annual turnover in excess of US $800 million. As its executive vice president, global CIO, he is propelling the growth of the group's IT consultancy and services organization, John Kears IT, as well as group's open innovation, startup incubator, John Kears X as their Chief Executive.
Can you all hear me?
Yes, Ramesh, we can hear you loud and clear.
You can see the screen as well.
Yes.
Yep. Yes.
Right. Very good afternoon to all of you. And let me congratulate Jayant, Oshada, Anuruddha, all from the industry for putting the entire ICT agenda on a turbo boost. It's lovely to see that. So I think my mandate in the next 15 minutes to probably kind of pose the right questions and also maybe leave a trail in terms of as Sri Lanka as a nation. I think Jayant brought about a lot of pertinent points. Having missed the bus a couple of times, can we get our act together right? And what can we do right, given the posture and the time that we are starting this initiative to make an impact to Sri Lanka? So my intervention here is purely in terms of looking at, if you look at the global context, just to kind of summarize so that we would probably obviously have to feature in the global context as Sri Lanka, right? So if you look at from a global context, close to about 50% of the population is in Asia, right? So we are sitting between India and China as the two biggest economies after US, and probably trying to see what we could do, right? And also it's a fact that 80% of the global wealth of 84 trillion is concentrated with 25 economies, right? And most of the biggest sector which contributes to global GDP is services, 61. So at the same yardstick, if you look at the social indicators, obviously the life expectancy for everyone is going up, literacy rates are going up, unemployment is dwindling down, urbanization is on the increase, and I think Sri Lanka is no different, right? So Sri Lankan population, 50%, close to say 50% is in Western province, 25% is in Western province, right? As compared to 50% of the Asian population. And our economy is about 81 billion, and 40% of the GDP is also considered in Western province. So urbanization is happening in Sri Lanka as well, no different. And our GDP distribution is also skewed towards services. So if you look at the global GDP rank, we are on the 65th, right? Urban population, we have close to about 19. Literacy, we have 91. But we have to question ourselves whether the 91% literacy really makes sense in terms of our economic growth or not. So this is the World Economic Forum Global Competitiveness Index, right? So if you look at, we rank 84th out of the 141 countries which got ranked. And if you look at the indicators, other than infrastructure, we are lagging behind the South Asian countries. So Singapore, Hong Kong are leading the charts, right? If you look at in IT, we are even ranked 107th. We are in the region, average Korea is leading with the rank of 40th, right? In innovation, we are on 84th, whereas a lot of other countries in the region, including Singapore, including India, Malaysia, Bangladesh, are doing better than us. So what does Sri Lanka 2025 vision from what I've seen in the government mandate? So we want to make Sri Lanka a hub of the Indian Ocean, right? And obviously we are trying to grow our economy on a knowledge-based economy with social market economics, right? And we want to raise the per capita from the current 3.5K to 5K, and 1 million new jobs, increase our FDIs to 5 billion, doubling our exports to 20 billion. These are all significant growth mandates, right? And the challenges, on the challenges side, we have, obviously, I kind of missed the first hour of the program, so I'm sure a lot of these things would have got addressed. The digital identity, like Jayanta mentioned, that for the 20 years we've been kind of waiting for it, right? So that is a primal foundational aspect if you want to try to grow a digital economy, that your citizen must have a digital ID, right? Then we need to look at inclusiveness, right? Urban, suburban, males, females, do they have access to opportunity, right? And the productivity in the public sector. So when I say productivity, so I am kind of voicing from the private sector. So today, every one of us, including me, are responsible in terms of productivity, in terms of outcomes, not for means, but outcomes, right? Not in terms of means. So ultimately, we got to deliver quantifiable outcomes, right, to the organization, to our stakeholders. And also, I think, like what we saw today, we have an inequality of wealth distribution skewed towards the Western province, right? So what happens to the rest of the country, right? So we today talk a lot about building infrastructures. I think Jayanta touched about Mahaveli being one of the biggest infrastructure projects. So that all were in the 80s to bring inclusivity. But where are we on inclusivity? So can digital play a role in inclusivity, right? Giving access to people to be part of the economy, right? Because only way you could grow economy is that you make every citizen to become part of the economy so that you will create the avalanche effect, right? So look at the rest of it, right? So today, if we want to grow as a Sri Lankan economy, we have only a 20 million population in terms of an addressable space. So that's not good enough. Like Singapore and Dubai, they have 5 to 10 million each. So unless you have access to markets where you could export our services, or you bring in people like tourists to come and spend their wealth here, you're not going to be able to grow our economy, right? So then look at the indices which are really kind of hogging us. Ease of doing business, we had 110. Corruption perception, we had 83. Logistics performance, we had 89, right? So the opportunity today, sitting between India and China, so we have built ports, we have built airports, but what have we done with our digital infrastructure, right? Where are we on the digital map of the world? Do we get featured, right? So these are, I think, pertinent questions. I think you all have a significant role to play in putting Sri Lanka on the digital map. So Smart Sri Lanka, this is my coinage of the vision. What I thought is like, we have to transform Sri Lanka to take full advantage of the technology to accomplish three things. Make our economy more inclusive and sustainable, make our citizens more empowered and productive, make Sri Lanka an outstanding and competitive nation, a country one would aspire to live, work, and play. Today, we are having the highest number of people trying to migrate from Sri Lanka and the biggest brain drain issue that we are facing. So if we want to develop Sri Lanka as a nation to be reckoned with, we have to start attracting and retaining talent immaterial of which country they are from, like Dubai and Singapore, right? People would want to come and make this their home, right? I think we need to have, and then look at what do we need to do from a digital point of view, right? So these are a couple of things I thought that we would need to do if we really want to put Sri Lankan economy on a trajectory of exponential growth, right? Obviously, we need to attract FDIs because we don't have significant money to invest on infrastructure and grow the economy, right? We must have access to international markets. We have to also probably become a co-creator of products and services because we don't have a market which is addressable enough to sell our own products, right? So whether we could attract MNCs, I think what Jayanta was talking about in terms of industry parks is a fantastic thing, but we also need to then have a co-innovation program where we attract MNCs and stuff to create that value, right? And obviously we have to be competitive, right? So today, I know we are still struggling with highest prices for situation in Sri Lanka. We become competitive globally in terms of whatever sectors that we are playing in, services, manufacturing, even IT, right? Now, I know HCL has set up, which is an encouraging thing that they have even announced last week that they are going to set up a center with 5,000 people, right? So if we can attract more multinationals to come and set up even technology parks, invest in Sri Lanka, grow the capability, obviously it will help, right? So one of the other aspects that we also need to look at is access to education, health benefits, so which I feel we are doing a pretty good job. But I think we also then need to see how do we really also embrace a privatization motion on the education front, because everyone must have access to education, right? It can't be a privileged few who get access to education, right? So that is another problem I think we would have in creating capacity for this growth. And finally, I think I made a point, we must build infrastructures as much as infrastructures, right? So when I say infrastructures, I am purely relating it to digital, right? We are good at building highways, but today, is that money better structures than infrastructure? Infrastructure is what has made the difference for any nation, company who has survived and made good of the pandemic, right? So today we also need to then think post-pandemic, if we really want to be relevant, where do we really need to make that investment, right? So who needs to do this, right? So I don't think this is a mandate government alone can do, right? So I feel there has to be collaboration between all stakeholders of the economy, right? So which is a given. So the other thing that I was looking at, if you are looking at Smart Sri Lanka, I would look at 3 significant aspects from an economic part of view: smart citizens, smart cities, smart nations, right? From an economical point of view. Then from a digital point of view, we have to build 3 things: smart platforms, smart ecosystems, and a smart economy, right? So why I'm saying that is, now today, if you look at, to enable a smart citizen, you also need to create smart platforms, right? So government alone won't be able to build that. So collaboration, public-private collaboration is going to become important to do this, right? So I think it's a pretty good move that private sector is pretty much involved in the incubation of this, and that is how it should be. It should be hand in glove for us to kind of really drive this to the hill. So my final 2 slides, I have a few more because in the interest of time, I thought I'll just dive into the takeaways. So when you think digital, government or private sector today, so this is something I tell my group as well. Today, the Key supermarket is 24/7. Right? Once you go digital, you can't say I'm 8/5, right? So if you're going to have a digital play as a smart nation, are we ready to be 24/7, right? So what are the impediments there? Who are stakeholders? Who are going to use our services? Is it citizens? Are they visitors, investors, other countries, industry associations, partners? Who are they, right? So if you can't build an infrastructure if you don't know who is going to use it, who are the beneficiaries, who are the stakeholders. So are we clear about those? Right? What are the point of friction for all these stakeholders? How can we enhance the experiences, the journeys, and the outcomes for them? Right? Be it a visitor, be it an investor, be it a citizen. Right? So we have to then look at how can we really enable this in terms of benchmarking ourselves, in terms of what specifically Singapore, Dubai, Estonia, Israel have done in their respective spheres. Right? So Singapore is very close to home. Right? They've done a fantastic job in the last 20 years in terms of the digital economy and smart initiatives, right? So today, even we as John, we are talking to Enterprise Singapore, a lot of the startup organizations, to understand how they have accelerated being a country. What even a private sector company has done, they have done for a country, right? Because only reason is that Singapore and Dubai run the entire country like a company, like an organization, right? That's the only way. We all of us have to be accountable and responsible to deliver on what we're supposed to, right? So today, I think that accountability is lacking, right? And if we can bring that back, I'm sure we can easily overtake Singapore, because if you go back to history, in 1970s, Colombo Plan was the foundation for Singapore when Lee Kuan came and looked at that, right? But we are very good at coming up with broad, grandiose visions. We are very poor in execution, right? So this time around, I hope that we will get that right and we will be a force to be reckoned with, right? So it's important for us to then take an outside-in view, specifically from the best of breed countries, right? And see where is that we could kind of do better and what is that we need to do better to compete against countries like Singapore and Dubai. Because I don't think it's impossible for us to compete with them, right? But if we really kind of put everything on the trajectory, Singapore and Dubai are not two great forces that we can seriously compete because of our geographic positioning, as well as the kind of people that we have in terms of the knowledge economy, right? So that is where all of these, we also need to look at the opportunities as a country, what awaits us, and what could be potential threats. And then look at probably having a compelling digital vision for the nation, which is aligned. So finally, I think Jayanta did mention on this as well, because the capability is very important. So I think the government Cdio or digital information officers, it's a critical role, right? Because primarily, I don't think you all have to be technocrats, but you all have to be proponents of domain. And then because technology can be incubated by partnering with anyone, right? But you all know your respective departments, processes, bottlenecks pretty well, right? So you all should be change champions in terms of process innovation, simplification, and driving the digital journey, right? So I think that is where I feel that maybe the marrying of the technology and the business in our lingo from a private sector, should be marrying the technology to the public sector domains and seeing where you could integrate things, where you could simplify journeys, where you could make things more relevant, so that you could stitch the data from a public sector point of view to give better service to a citizen, to a visitor, to an investor, or to whoever it is, right? I think that's the transformation I think we need to achieve together, right? And the other thing, as I said, today, so in the private sector, if I draw an analogy, a lot of people will say, hey, I launched this fantastic application, I launched this fantastic website, I did fantastic bot, and I have a digital strategy, right? So that is not digital strategy, right? So the bolt-on is not a digital strategy. So if we are looking at the digital government, a digital nation, we have to look at starting from the foundation and be ready to rehaul things which would make sense, right? So we can't do cosmetics makeup, right? So that is the reason I think the group of you guys who are going to champion this must really be change catalysts, challenge the status quo, and push the boundaries. So as I said, in this journey, you guys are not alone. I think we can partner with countries, MNCs, and organizations locally to create an ecosystem. So this is not a thing that you all have to fight alone or do it alone, right? Because I think, as I said, and even already mentioned, we have to think Sri Lanka first. And today, if we are building something, there is nothing better than building a digital infrastructure, right? Which is what Jayant also amplified, right? So if that is the best thing to do, we have to put the best brains and the best efforts behind it and ensure that we are successful. So always remember, this is not a destination, it's a journey, right? We will improve, people around us will improve. So we got to keep sharpening our axe and continue the journey. So all the best to all of you. Have a wonderful journey and wish you the very best in whatever you aspire to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ramesh Anmuganathan. Now, we would like to invite Ms. Kanishka Vitana, Manager, Capacity Building, to deliver the closing remarks.
Thank you, Bhavani. Good afternoon, everyone. With the Cdio framework is now ready to unleash its potential, I'd like to take a moment to thank each of our distinguished guests and all the participants who made this pioneering event a successful one today. As we all are aware, COVID-19 has forced us all to adapt and innovate to meet this new normal. Our team redesigned the agenda from the ground up to ensure we could safely bring this significant event to you. With more than 100 participants and guests spanning across industry and government participating in a virtual session, the importance and the interest in this event are shown clearly. On behalf of all of us at ICTA, I'd like to express our gratitude to the Honorable Secretary, Mr. Jayanta De Silva, for his guidance and support throughout the program and for believing in our ability to deliver this significant event virtually. We would also like to express our appreciation to Ms. Soshita Senanayaka, Chairman of ICTA, and Engineer Mahinda B. Herath, Chief Executive Officer of ICTA, for their unwavering support. We would also like to express our gratitude to our board members for their advice and assistance. Also, we would like to thank our eminent panel members from the industry who are part of our advisory committee for gracing this occasion and also holding hands with us to drive this journey. We would also want to thank all of the ICTA's chief officers for sharing their knowledge and experience with us today. We'd also want to thank everyone who joined with us today and express an interest in engaging in a digital government capacity building endeavor. Also, we would like to thank everyone who has helped us in every possible way. Also, we would like to take this opportunity to express our sincere thanks to Mr. Anradi Alvis, our Chief Digital Economy Officer, for working closely with us and supporting and leading us to the end to make this event a success. Last but not least, I would like to thank our capacity building team who have collectively put this initiative off the ground under these difficult circumstances. Also, as the next step, you all can continuously engage with us through the NextGenGov initiative. We sincerely hope that with the support of all partners, we could be able to make this digital government capacity building event a success. There will be many capacity building events organized by ICTA, and we will make sure to keep you all informed. As all good things must come to an end, we have come to the end of this session today. But this is not the end, as this is a start of something new. Let us all work together to drive this transformation journey. Thank you. Stay safe and take care.
The government of Sri Lanka is making a significant transformation in the nation's ICT landscape, with government organizations set to revolutionize processes and service delivery unlike ever before. ICTA is making holistic and unified capacity development towards digitally transformed government. Towards this end, ICTA has embarked on an unprecedented initiative to introduce a pool of capable digital leaders expected to drive transformation at institutional level within a rebranded all-new position entitled CDIO, Chief Digital Information Officer. Cdio is set to transform the government organization's traditional processes into a digital and citizen-centric service delivery by implementing digital initiatives through the use of digital tools, services, and technologies. Cdio will drive strategy, decision-making, and policy formulation much effectively for the organization. From tackling the lack of solutions at government organizations that lack access to information, absence of proper IT systems, the hassle of getting things done, and resolving wastage of time and inefficiency, the CDIO is a crucial position for the future of digitally capable Sri Lanka. The CDIO will support the digital transformation of the organization with a vision to enable excellence in leadership for the transformation of a digitally transformed government. ICTA embarks on a comprehensive capacity building program to make CDIOs up to date and capable to drive with excellence, while securing many benefits and recognition, including academic empowerment and professional development, mentored with industry digital leaders, opportunities to collaborate with global networks and body of knowledge, the annual award ceremony, and much more. ICTA hopes to enroll up to 500 CDIOs by the year 2024 into the public sector of Sri Lanka. Are you ready for the challenge? Are you the next CDIO? The Chief Digital Information Officer is set to change the IT landscape of public sector organizations to be a part of a citizen-centric digital government as the nation journeys towards fast-tracking digital transformation and the greater good for the future of an IT-literate Sri Lanka in the years to come. CDIO, Chief Digital Information Officer.